Now, you had worked on other work with Justice Ginsburg before?
Yeah, in about 2009, I was working on a project about the modern women's movement called Makers, Women Who Make America, which was interviewing many of the groundbreaking women in the women's movement and also across, different areas. And that's when I really learned the story of Justice Ginsburg, then Ruth Bader Ginsburg's work on behalf of women's rights. I mean, I knew she was on the Supreme Court. I had no idea what she had done in the 1970s. And it was Gloria Steinem who pointed it out to us, because we'll interview Sandra Day O'Connor. And she said, well, of course, but you also have to interview Justice Ginsburg because of what she did. So, that's when I learned about it. And then Julie also worked on that project. We talked about Justice Ginsburg. Julie interviewed her for a film she had done, The Sturgeon Queens. And then in 2015, we were talking about her growing presence as, an internet icon, that she'd become the notorious RBG. And we just realized that a lot of people like us before didn't know the full story, and that she'd make a great documentary.
And this is one of the first documentaries about Justice Ginsburg. Was it easy to get access to her?
The short answer is no. It certainly wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. As Betsy said, we had each interviewed her previously, so we had some, enough to get in the door that she was going to read an email at least. And actually, she had been a huge fan of the Makers Project and really appreciated both the power of that and the ambition to really tell the story in a big way of the modern women's rights movement. But when we sent her an email laying out our kind of big plans to make a documentary telling the story of her life, her initial response to us was not yet. And so we just, didn't go away, basically. We spent the next year basically strategizing and going back and forth in all different ways and coming up with a plan of action that ultimately, with the idea that we would kind of start on the outer circle and get her okay to start talking to some people who had worked with her many decades ago and people who she had represented. Getting access to sort of the quasi-public events came later. The interview came later still, and some of the most, as well as some of the most personal aspects of her life. So it was kind of like a gradual and somewhat nerve-wracking process.